panic at 8th Army headquarters was one of the most dangerous moments of Operation Crusader, because it showed that a battle can come close to being lost in the mind before it is lost on the ground. Rommel's dash toward the frontier wire had shaken British command at exactly the moment when the fighting around Sidi Rezegh, Tobruk, and the Desert Corridor already seemed close to disaster. Reports were confused, armored losses were severe, and the destruction of 5th South African Brigade had made the whole operation feel fragile. The question at headquarters was no longer only where the tanks were. It was whether the offensive still had a future at all. The crisis grew from a battlefield that refused to present itself clearly. 8th Army was trying to understand events across a vast area, from the frontier boxes in the east to the fighting south of Tobruk in the west. 13th Corps was still tied to the frontier problem, while 30th Corps and the armored formations had been drawn into heavy combat around Sidi Rezegh. The Tobruk garrison was trying to break outward, but contact with the relief force was still uncertain and vulnerable. Rommel's mobile forces were moving unpredictably, or at least seemed to be moving unpredictably, which was nearly as dangerous. Headquarters had to make decisions from fragments, and fragments can create their own kind of fear.
Alan Cunningham, commanding 8th Army, faced a situation that would have tested any general. His army was new, his headquarters was still developing its habits, and the operation he had been given was exceptionally complex. It required separate forces to fight different kinds of battles while remaining part of one purpose. It required armor to survive repeated contact with Rommel's mobile troops, infantry to hold exposed ground, and the Tobruk garrison to break out at the right moment. By late November, the clean design had been battered by events. Cunningham saw heavy losses, uncertain reports, and enemy movement toward the rear, and the possibility of failure became impossible to ignore.
Rommel's dash to the wire worked because it struck at the headquarters' imagination. A commander at the front sees what is in front of him, but an army commander must imagine what is happening across the whole battlefield. If enemy columns are reported moving toward the frontier, that imagination can fill with worst cases. Supply lines might be cut. Headquarters might be threatened. Units still fighting near Tobruk might be isolated. The offensive might become not a relief operation, but a trap. Rommel did not need to destroy 8th Army headquarters physically to unsettle it. He only had to make senior commanders believe that the shape of the battle had changed beyond their control.
This is why information mattered as much as firepower. Reports from mobile battles are rarely neat, especially in a desert campaign fought over long distances with dust, damaged radios, tired staffs, and moving units. A report might be true when sent and misleading when received. A column identified as dangerous might be smaller than feared, while a real danger might go unreported until too late. Headquarters needed to know whether Rommel's move was a decisive threat or a raid, whether British armor was still capable of fighting, whether Tobruk could still be relieved, and whether continuing the offensive would save the campaign or destroy the army. No one could answer all of that with perfect confidence.
The pressure on Cunningham became more than a staff problem. It became a command crisis. He had to decide whether to persist with an offensive that seemed to be bleeding itself white or pull back before the situation became irreparable. Pulling back could preserve what remained of the army, but it would almost certainly abandon the chance to relieve Tobruk and might hand Rommel a major psychological victory. Continuing could keep the operation alive, but it risked further losses and possible collapse if the enemy really had seized the initiative. These were not easy choices, and they should not be judged as if the commanders possessed the clarity of later hindsight.
Claude Auchinleck's role now became decisive. As commander-in-chief in the Middle East, he was above Cunningham and had to judge not only the immediate panic, but the whole strategic purpose of the campaign. Auchinleck understood that Crusader had been badly mauled, but he also recognized that Rommel's army was under strain and that the British offensive was not necessarily finished. The siege of Tobruk had not been permanently relieved,
but the effort to relieve it was still alive. To stop too soon might convert temporary chaos into final defeat. Auchinleck's steadiness in this moment mattered because armored warfare often creates crises that look terminal before they actually are.
Auchinleck came forward to 8th Army headquarters and confronted the question directly. The result was one of the most dramatic command changes of the campaign. Cunningham was removed, and Neil Ritchie, then Auchinleck's deputy chief of the General Staff, was placed in command of 8th Army. This was not a magic solution to the battlefield's problems, and Ritchie did not suddenly make the desert simple, but the change signaled that the offensive would continue. It also showed how seriously Auchinleck viewed the danger of a headquarters losing confidence while troops were still fighting. In war, changing commanders is a grave act, but so is allowing hesitation to paralyze an army in motion.
The panic at headquarters also reveals a larger truth about armored warfare. Tanks move quickly, and because they move quickly, they create situations faster than senior command systems can always interpret them. The more mobile the battle, the more dangerous the delay between event, report, understanding, and decision becomes. A panzer thrust can be miles away by the time its location is confirmed. A British brigade can be badly reduced before headquarters fully understands its condition. A route can be open in 1 hour and closed in the next. Armored warfare therefore demands not only fast vehicles, but a command culture able to live with uncertainty without surrendering judgment.
For the men still fighting near Tobruk and Sidi Rezeg, the headquarters crisis was largely invisible, but its consequences could have been enormous. They needed orders, supplies, reinforcements, and above all, a continued purpose. If 8th Army had halted or withdrawn at the wrong moment, local sacrifices might have been rendered meaningless, and the garrison in Tobruk might have remained trapped. Frontline soldiers often experience battle as immediate survival, but their survival is tied to decisions made far behind them. A command post filled with maps, telephones, signals, and anxious staff officers may look removed from combat, yet the fear inside it can shape who lives, who is reinforced, and who is left exposed.
Rommel's own situation was not as strong as British headquarters feared. His dash had created alarm, but it had also pulled mobile strength away from the decisive ground near Tobruk. His forces were tired, supplied under difficulty, and not immune to the attrition that had punished everyone in the campaign. This is one of Crusader's central ironies. At the same time British headquarters feared collapse, the Axis army was not positioned for effortless victory. The battle was still balanced on exhaustion and decision rather than settled by one dramatic movement. The side that best endured uncertainty might gain more than the side that seemed, for a moment, to be moving most boldly.
The crisis also exposed the difference between tactical defeat and operational defeat. British and Commonwealth units had suffered tactical disasters, including the shattering of 5th South African Brigade and severe armored losses around Sidi Rezeg. But an operation can survive tactical defeats if the army still holds enough strength, purpose, and command will to continue towards its essential aim. Conversely, an operation can fail even after local successes if headquarters misreads the situation and abandons the effort too soon. Crusader sat precisely on that edge. Its future depended on whether commanders could see beyond the wreckage of recent days and recognize that the relief of Tobruk was still possible.
Panic at 8th Army headquarters deserves a place in the story because command fear is as real a battlefield force as fuel shortage or anti-tank fire. The maps did not show panic, but panic shaped interpretation. It made enemy movement look larger, friendly losses look final, and uncertainty look like defeat. Auchinleck's insistence on continuing did not erase the losses or make the coming days easy. It simply prevented the campaign from being abandoned during its most frightening interval. In the larger history of armored warfare, this moment teaches that mobile battles are decided not only by tank crews and commanders at the front, but by the ability of higher headquarters to absorb shock, resist false certainty, and keep a battered army moving toward a still valid objective.